Hi everybody! So today we're going to be talking about some pretty interesting witchy stuff. We're going to be talking about basically spirit guides, familiars, and servitors. So this is actually kind of a reboot of some periscopes I did, and I wanted to go ahead and just make it into a YouTube video because I felt like the content was so, I guess, needed to be solidified somehow so you guys can actually go back, because that's what I don't like about Periscope is the fact that you've only got 24 hours to watch it. So if you miss it, you miss it, and then you no longer get that content from me. So anytime I do a Periscope that I feel is particularly potent, I like to try and reboot it on YouTube. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, spirit guides are amazing, first off. They are the beings that we get to work with that help guide you, help give you lessons, and pretty much are your spiritual support. Now, of course, I've had questions, and I thought this, there's different types of spirit guides, first off. You can have one that's like an animal. You can have one that is a deity. Apparently, I've heard of people working with deities in the form of like spirit guides. You can have ancestral spirit guides, which are, my best way to describe it is how you see in Mulan. She goes to her family's shrine for their ancestors, and there's all her ancestral spirit guides. So, you can have those too. And you can have angels as spirit guides. So, really, there is an endless amount of ways to interact and connect to your spirit guides, and they come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. So, with that being said, something that was asked, and I believe Sasha asked me, was, do you feel like everybody has a certain type of guide? And do we each have every kind of guide? Now, I don't necessarily feel that way, because really, there's such a wide variety, and your spirit guides find you. So, with that being said, you really kind of get what you need. So, you may not need an ancestral spirit guide. You yourself, out of the lineage of your family, if they do have ancestral spirit guides, they may not feel particularly drawn to you. And instead, you might have an animal spirit guide like me, because I have a deep connection to animals. So my spirit guides manifest in the form of animals. My primary guide is a wolf. And anyhow, don't feel as though you have to be boxed in with these certain types of spirit guides, and that if yours don't fit that criteria, then yours might not be a valid spirit guide. Your spirit guide comes to you however it comes to you. And so with that being said, you will know when your spirit guide is there. And most of the time, it's hard to sense their presence for a while, because you have to truly be aware. I mean, they're there, trust me. They're there watching over you, and sometimes you may even hear that subconscious voice in your head. That sounds like a subconscious voice, but it's really your spirit guide that is helping guide you, being like, okay, no, you really shouldn't do that. But there is nothing more rewarding than when you actually get to meet your spirit guides. And I offer those readings, and I offer guided meditations personally, if for those of you who need help being introduced to your spirit guides. and who might need that guided meditation in order to actually meet your spirit guide further. Because what you really need to do is you seriously need to separate yourself from that, from the chaos of your mind in order to really connect to your spirit guides. Otherwise, it'll be hard for you to finally identify their presence. Something else that was brought up in my Periscope is, being able to identify that presence. Because sometimes that presence can seem scary or alarming, but it's really just your spirit guide. And I can tell you and assure you that you will know the difference between a spirit guide just being an intimidating presence, because that's very possible, because sometimes your guides are there to challenge you, so they may come across as very intimidating at first. So don't be afraid of that. You will know the difference between a spirit guide and some sort of nefarious presence, or nefarious presence, whatever. Like I said, I don't edit my videos, so what you see is what you get, and I like that rawness. So anyways, you will know the difference between getting a presence that truly belongs with you rather than a presence that may be working against you. That sort of dark presence is much different than the presence of a spirit guide. 9 times out of 10, there will be a very dark energy, not just an intimidating one. And that is a great way for me to help you identify that, because I've personally experienced dark presences twice in my life. Once was when I was much younger, and I happened to see it by a door in my house, and it was faceless, and it took my breath away, and it was absolutely horrifying, and I have never seen anything like that again. Second time was, I believe, a manifestation of dark energy from someone who was equally as dark of a person. And it was a very dark and just cloudy and scary black orb that I saw within my meditation. And let's just say that you will know the difference between that and just an intimidating spirit guide, because absolutely, your spirit guides can be intimidating. Other than that, to finish off with my discussion about spirit guides before we move on to familiars and servitors, because those two connect more together, but I wanted to make a larger video for once. It won't be too large because I don't like making them long anymore for obvious reasons, because I don't have the attention span for long videos myself, and I know most other people don't either. So, anyways, with that being said, basically, once you achieve that connection with your spirit guide or spirit guides, you can have more. That's something else that I needed to discuss really quick, is that you absolutely have the potential to have more than one. I mean, some people can have as many as 8. But the thing is, I believe that you have one primary guide that follows you throughout life. The rest are secondary guides that help when their particular lesson or their particular presence is more potent in a particular moment in your life, is when they tend to manifest. But they're always there. They're just they stay kind of in the background, unlike your primary guide. Your primary guide is usually there with you from birth, even though you can't really connect with them until much later. But I believe that probably everybody has spirit guides. I really do, in some shape or form. But anyways, with that being said, the best way that you can do to connect with them is to seriously clear your mind, meditate, and go wherever your mind takes you. Hopefully your astral garden, which your astral garden is your meditative inner home. And then you simply just ask for them to make themselves known. And like I said, for those of you who struggle and are afraid to do this on your own or are unsure to do it on your own, I do offer this. I offer it without a guided meditation, and I offer it with a guided meditation video, which is me making a custom video for you tailored to what I see in your cards. And then we go through the meditation together. So, now to move on to familiars. Familiars are basically magical animals, in a sense, or plants, because I also believe that plants and crystals can be familiars, but they are living or energetic things that you have a strong connection to. They oftentimes are animals, because animals are so present in our lives, whereas plants and crystals often have to be brought into your life. Whereas animals can come seek you out, and they're sentient beings, and they come to you. Now, can a pet be a familiar? Yes. Can a wild animal be a familiar? Yes, but they're most likely not gonna, it's different than being a pet. But the thing is that, like I said, even plants can be familiars, because I discussed this on my Periscope. But anything that is willing to exchange its energy with you and basically help you in your doings, whether it be just your daily life or if it is magical practice, has the potential to be a familiar. And I feel like plants are inherently familiars because they are always so grateful to lend their energy back to you in return for the energy you lend them. And so I have tons and tons of plants. I love my plants, but I also believe that crystals can be familiars too. And the reason I say that is because I have tons of crystals, but there's only a couple that I have a truly deep connection with. And I showed this on Periscope, but this is one of them. It's a smoky quartz point. Well, wand rather. But this is my baby, and I absolutely adore this crystal. And I have a connection to it unlike any of my other crystals. This is probably my most favorite crystal, and it is for me. And I just love this crystal. I love all my crystals, but as I said, this would be a familiar crystal. Now, I'm trying to remember some of the questions that I may have had on Periscope about familiars, but I don't really think I had that many because mostly everybody knew what they were and how they worked. Now, another way to be able to kind of tell if you have a familiar is that they're always interested in working with you. Now, let's say you have a cat and a dog. The cat never comes around, even though it's your pet, and it still exchanges that energy with you through like playing and stuff like that. That's different. But let's say whenever you go to burn incense or just meditate, your dog always wants to come by. That means that your dog is most likely your familiar. See, I have several pets, but really my only familiar is my ball python. He has been my baby, and he also is always more than glad to do things with me, whether it be me actually doing some sort of ritual or me just doing something like burning incense and just tending to a shrine I have. He is always glad to lend his energy, and he loves getting in my crystals. Just other things like that that will give you a sign that you have a familiar. Now, to move on to servitors. This is where it gets a little more difficult and a little more harder to understand, but I'm going to try my best to explain this as best as I can without it being very confusing. So, now, basic simplification. I don't think that's a word, but that's okay. Basically, to simplify what a servitor is, it is an energy created thought form. A thought form are basically manifestations that you create out of energy work. So, they're basically your self-made familiars. They are designed by you, and in their design, you give them their intended purpose, and they will basically be loyal to you if you design them so. Otherwise, you have to destroy them because they may go awry and cause you some grief, some bad luck, whatever. But I mean, nothing to be afraid of really here, because I will tell you why it's so important to pay very much, like, pay so much attention to the design. The design is crucial in making a thought form, because that's also what servitors are called. They're called thought forms. So, basically, these, like I said, are your own creations of energy that do what you are intending them to do. Now, I will share some of my own candid experiences with my servitors, and I will also tell you how to make one, because I believe everybody could benefit from a servitor as long as you know what you're doing with one. Basically, first thing you need to do is you need to meditate, and you need to be able to meditate, like, get in your zone, because this takes a lot out of you. These most likely will be an extension of yourself. I'm sorry. Gosh, look at the hiccups. No, I'm about to yawn. Anyways, these will most likely be an extension of yourself. That is the easier way to make them, other than to actually raise and create complete energy by itself. And they're also more loyal when they're an extension of yourself. I have about, I have about 7 servitors probably. And they all have their own intended purpose, and I check in with them daily. Now, before I tell you how to make them, I guess it makes more sense probably to go ahead and give you some of my examples. Okay, so one example is that my mom, when I was going to on a trip and I was many hours away, she started having a massive stroke, and she was dying. She was hemorrhaging on the brain, and so I quickly, on the spot, mid like panic attacks and everything, decided to make a servitor for her to go and be with her, to at least comfort her and to help heal her if possible. And she actually, I created it, sent it off, and she actually, like, made it through that surgery. And like I said, I'm not saying that that's completely only the reason why, but I'm just saying servitors are important because the energy work is an extension of yourself, and you get to actually do important things with them. Whereas familiars, they kind of work on their own time. They do what they want to do, they help when they want to help. Your servitor is going to do what you want it to do, when you want it to do the thing, and always be ready. As, you know, assuming you've designed it to be loyal and do that. So, what another thing you can do is I have a large bear servitor, and that is a servitor that I particularly do when I want my car to be protected. When I'm going to be doing something and leaving my car sitting somewhere, I either let the bear protect it and put off this intimidating energy that no one will want to, like, mess with my car, or if I'm walking alone, I bring my servitor with me. I summon my servitor, basically, and allow it to give me that intimidating energy so that I can be protected and no one will bother me. These are just some examples of what you can do with a servitor, basically. Now, to go ahead and just get into how to make one so I can end this video, because we're actually pushing like 20 some minutes, which is like my comfort zone for a video. You want to get extremely meditative. You need to be in the zone, and I'm serious, you cannot be distracted, because if you fuck up your design, then you're gonna have to either destroy your servitor or redo it. Redoing it is the easier thing to do. It's, you know, you just reprogram it, but that doesn't always work. So sometimes you have to destroy them. Anyhow, you need to be extremely meditative, and as you get into that spot, I always suggest imagining a white light as an extension of yourself, like most likely at your chest. Because white light is white is a color. We're doing color therapy here, but white is the universal color, and you can create with it, you can heal with it, whatever you need to do. So color therapy, guys, you think of white for purification and creation. So you want to continue expanding this orb with your breath until you can finally begin to start designing your servitor. Now, you'll most likely see a line coming from your chest to this ball of light. Now, you can either decide what your servitor looks like, or you can let it manifest into its own creation. I have done both. And as I told people on Periscope, like, I created the bear, and then I have other ones that just look like bizarre Pokemon, basically, when they manifest as themselves. They are just their own little thing. I don't know how to describe them, but they just look like weird Pokemon, pretty much, whenever you just let them create themselves, usually. And, I mean, I'm sure you can do anything with a servitor. I'm sure you could create an angel-like servitor. But anyhow, regardless, it doesn't matter, because it's up to you. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue. As you design them and they come into creation, then the most important part is giving them their purpose and setting the boundaries for your servitor. You have to do this. Okay, guys? Because otherwise, you're creating energy that is just going to do whatever it wants to do. And you're defeating the purpose of your servitor. So this is the most important thing. First, you need to set boundaries for it, such as, you are loyal to me, you are happy being my servitor, and you will not disobey me. Things like that. things that are important to prevent your servitor from going awry, basically. And that's really just that you have to do. You know, you are designing a robot, essentially. So think of it like that. You're designing an energy robot. So when you design an energy robot, you know, you're thinking, okay, what are the things I don't want this to do? Keep that in mind. Then you want to give it its intended purpose. So let's say you want to make a protective servitor like my bear. You'd simply tell the servitor, you are now in charge of protecting me and keeping me safe. So, and then with that, you've pretty much designed your servitor. And so, lastly, the most important thing you have to do, well, it's not the most important thing to do, because the most important thing was in the creation and setting boundaries, but it needs to have an anchor. An anchor can literally be anything. It can be anything in your house. But what is the anchor? The anchor is a source of grounding this presence so that they aren't just floating around aimlessly. They essentially have a home when they are not being summoned or used. So keep that in mind. It can literally be anything. It can be a crystal. It can be a plant. It can be a painting on the wall. It can be anything, but you just need to keep in mind that they need to have a grounding source. And that way, in doing so, they're wherever they need to be until you need them. And you don't have to worry about where they're at or what they're doing or whatever. 2 is ideal, but 1 is fine. You just need somewhere for this creation to stay. Now, that pretty much sums it up, other than when you have to destroy or reprogram one, which I'll quickly tell you how to do. Destroying one, you simply just need to destroy it with white light. Just, once again, envision your creation and just... But hopefully you don't have to do that. But, you'll know because they won't listen to you anymore. They aren't coming when you need them anymore. I've only had to destroy 1, and some sort of negative entity attached itself to her, and I just could not. She didn't feel right anymore. I had to destroy her. She was my first one, too, so. I mean, just sometimes, you'll know. But to reprogram, you just simply go back in through the process and reinstate those boundaries and that purpose, and that's all you have to do. So, or if you want to change their purpose or change what they do, just do the same thing. So, alright guys, that's pretty much it. I've talked forever, and I hope you got a lot of information out of it, and don't forget to subscribe. And my email's always there if you have more questions, or you can feel free to DM me on Instagram, whatever you need to do if you have any more questions. But namaste. I hope you enjoyed.